Alright guys, let's get into some big Nintendo Switch 2 news that is just happening at this point. I really like what Nintendo's doing when it comes to the new ad campaign. It's the Nintendo Switch, but it's bigger, badder, and better. So what do you need to do to kind of appeal to the nostalgia of the people of yesteryear, but also get the new people into this system? Well, you have 150 million plus Nintendo Switch 1 to build off of, but essentially with this system, you have the largest power jump that Nintendo's made in a really long time. And you also have the Power Stars. You have the different things that suit with Nintendo already. So what's it called? Power up. Power up your play. Throw it down. All of these different billboards and signs are starting to pop up in the big cities around the United States, and I love the campaign, Power Up Your Play. Take what you love about the Nintendo Switch 2 and spin it to the next thing. Now, the advertising for this system is going to be interesting because there was some talk on Twitter, social media, different stuff, like, okay, how's Nintendo going to position and market this? They do have children that do play the system, but with the Nintendo Switch 1, you saw a lot of young adults. Now, what we do know based off the demographics that Nintendo has revealed, that yeah, the biggest target audience for Nintendo in terms of who's actually buying and playing the system are 20 to 40-year-olds with a huge amount of early 20s, which now at this point would be about mid 20s or so people playing. So people 21, 22, 23, 24, 25 in that type of range. Nintendo revealed this huge spike of people that are that age, but they also still have a number, a very high number of people in their 30s and 40s, people that grew up with the NES or the Super Nintendo, things like that, or the N64 overall. So the Power Up Your Play, Throw It Down, Mario Kart, all of that is very good to appeal to the people that love that type of style back then. This is essentially what they did with the Super Nintendo, just less 90s aesthetic overall. Now you're playing with power. They did that commercial with Paul Rudd. Big titles like Mario Kart World that are going to be very appealing for many of the people that just want something new when it comes to Mario Kart, man. We've been playing Mario Kart 8 Deluxe and just Mario Kart 8 for 11 years now. Remember, the best-selling game on the Nintendo Wii U was Mario Kart 8. One of the best-selling games was Mario Kart 7 for the Nintendo 3DS, but with the Wii U, Mario Kart 8 sold over 8 million plus units on a system that did 13 million. And then with the Nintendo Switch, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe sold over 67 million units. So having Mario Kart right there, have it be the centerpiece game with your power up and play campaign where you also have the billboard to throw it down. You have Mario Kart drifting on there, Mario Kart World showing nice and bright. So I think this is definitely a good thing to do. Bringing back Paul Rudd, I thought that was awesome. I remember watching those commercials back in the day and thinking that was pretty cool. And now you have it obviously more of like a meme slash throwback to what he did back then all these years later, 30 something plus years later. I love what they've been doing so far with the commercial advertisement when it comes to Nintendo Switch 2. We'll see how it actually works out. We have to kind of see and gauge how many core players get it, and then of course from there, that's when more of the casual audience will pick it up, word of mouth, other games that come out, big titles, things like that. So I'm really much looking forward to seeing exactly how everything will shake out. But I'm also looking forward to seeing how you guys will shake out to hit that subscribe button. So hit that sub button if you're not subbed yet and you enjoy Nintendo Switch 2 content. Hit that like button and click that notification bell to get my vids as soon as they drop, as we're dropping a lot of great news. So let's go ahead and jump right into the next topic here, guys. We've got to talk about this upgrade for the Nintendo Switch 2 version of Hogwarts Legacy. It just kind of popped up and people are starting to report and talk about it. Shout outs to Wario64 and a plethora of people that talked about this on Twitter. So Hogwarts Legacy for the Nintendo Switch 2 upgrade is going to be $10 if you already own the Nintendo Switch 1 version. Now, here's the cool thing about this. Right now, the Nintendo Switch 1 version is on sale for $17.99 on the US eShop. So if you pick up the Switch 1 version for $17.99, you can get the Switch 2 version for $10 more, so $27.99. Now, if you compare that to the Switch version on the Nintendo Switch 2, yeah, that's going to be $59.99, or the physical game key card, that's also going to be $59.99. So getting the upgrade is obviously the best thing to do. Don't just buy it outright if you're planning on buying Hogwarts Legacy on the Nintendo Switch 2, do not do that outright digitally, because then you'll be paying the full price. If you buy the Switch 1 version, then upgrade to the Switch 2 version, once it's offered there, you will be set and good to go right there at launch. This is a launch title. And remember, this isn't just the Nintendo Switch 1 version, shinier and faster and better, which that game was not the same as the PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series version with the seamless open world and the graphics and other things that it did. It was definitely developed and played in a little bit of a different type of way, which is why it got delayed significantly after the PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series versions. So it is going to be more in line with the PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series version with the seamless open world, much better graphics and resolution. So that's the good thing about Hogwarts Legacy on the Nintendo Switch 2. It's actually the real better version of the game, not just the Switch 1 version that runs at better frame rate and resolution. So very good when it comes to that, but they're letting you upgrade, which Sega is not letting you upgrade when it comes to Sonic Cross Shadow Generations. So definitely a good thing overall with this, and I'd love to see more developers like Sega and other developers say, okay, yeah, you're going to be able to upgrade if the game is on the Nintendo Switch 1, especially with other games that come out in the future, or if they want to make Nintendo Switch 2 versions of some of these games that were on Nintendo Switch 1 that didn't run that great. I think it'd be really cool if they offered some of these updates. Now, this is definitely a good thing because right now, Warner Bros. Games, they're imploding because of the failure of the Suicide Squad game, the live service title. That lost them so much money. It pretty much crippled the development of Wonder Woman after they spent $100 million on that game as well. Plus, Multiverses got shut down. Warner Bros. Is not doing too hot. They've actually lost a lot of money, and they didn't make anything because they didn't release any games. So their revenue completely tanked, and it was essentially all from Hogwarts Legacy and the Evergreen sales from that. But yeah, Suicide Squad was a $200 million failure. They had issues that spiraled out of control when it comes to the Wonder Woman game. Then they ended up getting shut down. Obviously, Multiverses got shut down after that thing went offline for what, like 6 months plus or something like that. It's just been a complete disaster. Probably the only bright spot in the last number of years for Warner Bros. Has been Hogwarts Legacy. That's been the best thing that they've done so far. So I think that's the reason why they're just trying to entice people, say, hey, pick up the Switch version, get the Nintendo Switch 2 version here, no problem. And yeah, like I said, I'd love to see more devs actually do this as well with the Nintendo Switch 2. Sega is the big culprit here with a lot of their games that are coming out on Switch 1 or came out on Switch 1 and they're not doing upgrades for Switch 2. So what do you guys think about that? You can let me know in the comment section as well. But now we're going to get to another thing surrounding the game lineup when it comes to Nintendo Switch 2, and a very interesting bit that came out of PAX East 2025. A marketing representative from Limited Run Games talked about what they're going to be doing for their physical titles versus their game key card titles, and the main distinction of what you will see throughout the life of the Nintendo Switch 2, it seems at least. So this was to Boss Rush, and Boss Rush did confirm that any limited run numbered releases for the Nintendo Switch 2 will contain the full game on the cartridge, aka a true physical release. Just like, as an example, Cyberpunk 2077, Nintendo's first-party titles, those are all on cartridge that run off of the cartridge. You don't have to download the whole game like a game key card. Now, let's move to the next thing that they had to say. Games released as a partnership and therefore not a numbered release may be published as a game key card, leaving the decision up to the third-party developers. So yeah, it does look like when it comes to the numbered that Limited Run decide to do, those will be physical, for real physical, but game key cards could come from the outside developers overall. So we'll just have to kind of monitor that and see which games get that. Now, I really don't like game key cards just because I don't like to have to rely upon the internet for a physical game overall. Although there is a lot of misinformation when it comes down to them, the games are not tied to your account. So you can actually sell the game or you can let a friend borrow the game. The game is actually tied to that physical cartridge that you have. It's not tied to your account. So I did see some people trying to say that it's tied to your account. It's not tied to your account. And when it comes to Nintendo shutting down the servers, I know some people talk about that as well. That's not necessarily the case either, because even to this point, 20 something years after the fact, the Nintendo Wii eShop or the Nintendo shop from the Wii, that you can still download your games. So I still think that Nintendo and these third parties will allow people to download their games for years, decades down the line, just like you can do the same thing with the Xbox 360 and stuff. So keep that in mind with a game key card. I don't think it's gonna be one of those things to where they completely shut down something in like 2 years or 3 years or whatever the case is, but I still necessarily don't like the concept of having to use the internet and not actually run off of the card itself. Just like CD Projekt Red said, don't underestimate physical, don't underestimate the buying power of the people on the Nintendo Switch platform or Nintendo platforms, and now with the Nintendo Switch 2, to buy the real physical game. And you look at what happened with Walmart, which I talked about just the other day, where all of the best sellers were Nintendo's physical real games. In addition to Cyberpunk 2077, that was the only real physical third-party game that was in the best sellers, and Street Fighter 6. Street Fighter 6 was there, but that was the only game key card game. All the other ones were not in the best sellers, but of course Nintendo's first-party games are always going to sell better than most of the third-party titles, but Cyberpunk was with it as well. So yeah, it's one of those things to where if you can get a real physical release, definitely do so. But we'll see how things progress, and we'll see what games Limited Run actually gets for their numbered lineup when it comes to titles. All right, let's go and move on to the next topic here, guys. We're going to discuss what's happening with the Persona brand, because one of the big things that people really wanted Atlas to do, and it was a huge controversy slash discussion for years until it actually happened, and that was Persona only on PlayStation. Mainline Persona games only on PlayStation. We finally saw the release of something outside of that with Persona 4 Golden on PC, and they instantly sold 1 million copies, realizing that they have been doing fake, or for no reason, more like it, exclusivity to Sony for absolutely no reason, when there's a bunch of other people out there that would actually spend the money on a separate platform. So following that in 2022, I think, or so, they ended up porting over Persona 3, Persona 4, and Persona 5 to all the platforms: Xbox, PlayStation, Nintendo, PC, everything got it. And from there, the sales have been blowing up. There was a small fan campaign called Break Free Persona. I know I did a video on that, and I had a lot of hardcore PlayStation fans say it's exclusive because Sony bought exclusivity and all this stuff that was never proven or never indicated by either of these companies. And obviously, it was not true. Atlas was just doing exclusives just because. Maybe because they felt they can save on development. I'm not really sure, but obviously it was a bad idea, because shout out to my man Stealth. He put up this tweet here, and it says, as of March 2025, the Persona series has sold 3.6 million units worldwide since April 2024. 3.6 million units. Sega confirmed that the series has sold 830,000 units in January, February, and March 2025 combined. It has become an evergreen series for Sega, like Mario Kart is for Nintendo. So if you look at what's happening here, 3.6 million worldwide, pretty much in that 1 year span. That was absolutely more than what they would have done if you simply put it on one platform, because Persona, once again, changing demographics, changing type of areas in terms of where people are buying games, JRPGs. There was a huge shift to the Nintendo Switch in Japan, and all that huge shift even here in the US of people buying RPGs on more than just PlayStation when it comes down to it. After the failure of the Wii U and the 3DS kind of faded out, people really started buying a lot of these RPGs on the Nintendo Switch. So it only made sense, along with Microsoft's money for Game Pass to put it on their platform as well. It only made sense for them to finally have it to where it was on multiple platforms, and you see the type of success that they're having now. 3.6 million units as an evergreen type of game, because these games are older at this point. So that's definitely good for Persona, and it makes sense for what they're going to be doing going forward in the future overall, because I'm pretty sure that Persona 6 is going to be a multi-platform game, unless somebody ponying up a ton of money, which I don't think Nintendo or Sony did this time around, and I don't think Microsoft did either, outside of maybe getting it on Game Pass. There's definitely going to be a ton of people excited to play Persona 6 on multiple platforms, especially Nintendo Switch 2 in Japan, and of course PlayStation as well. So what do you guys think overall with everything that we talked about here with the Nintendo Switch? There's a bunch of great topics. Let me know in the comment section below. All right, guys, that wraps it up for this video here. Thank you so much for watching. I do appreciate it. Please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're someone new, click that notification bell, and check out my other Nintendo Switch 2 RPG content and more right here on screen. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll catch you guys for the next one. Peace.